Welcome back, awesome 8th graders. Here we go again. Today, day 2 of 1.4 irrational numbers. Now, the last note-taking day we did on day 1, we filled in page 16, all of these, all right, clarifying whether they were rational or irrational. You'll have some of these on your review questions on your homework today, but those are already done in your notes. So today, day 2 on 1.4 irrational numbers, we are going to learn how to estimate each of these irrational numbers to the nearest 10th, all right? To the nearest 10th. We've done to the nearest whole number before. Now we're going to round to the nearest 10th. That's one decimal point, one place behind the decimal point. So if you have 3.4, rounding it to the nearest decimal point, that is to the 10th. All right, let's get started. Letter A. Now we have the square root of 83. Now you guys have your times tables, remember, but you're also supposed to have your square roots remembered all the way up to 15. If I look at the square root of 81, I know that that is very close to the square root of 83. I know that is very close to the square root of 81, which that answer is a positive negative 9, correct? And then the other one that it would come between then, because 81 comes before 83, so then it would be the 10 times 10, which would be the square root of 100, which is a positive negative 10, if you simplify it. Now you have to ask yourself, is 83 closer to 81 or is it closer to 100? It is definitely closer to 81 because it's only 2 away. So your answer, if we were rounding it to the nearest whole number, would be a positive negative 9. But in this case, it's going to be approximately a positive negative 9. And it's only, what, 2 away? And since we have to go to the nearest 10th, I'm going to go with approximately 9.1. All right. Let's do letter B. What two radicals does that come, 5 come between? It comes between the square root of 4. That's a positive negative 2. And the square root of 9. That's the positive negative 3. But which one is it closer to? If it was a whole number, we would say approximately positive negative 2, but since it's the nearest 10th, it is closer to the 4 than it is to the 9. It's very close to the 4. So we're going to go, so we know it's going to be at least a 2, so it's approximately a 2 point, what? A 2.1 again, because it is very close. 5 is very close to the 4. It's just a little bit more, so it's going to be the 2.1. Now we go to letter C, square root of 120. That comes between the square root of 121 and the square root of 144. Now the square root of 121 is a, oh, what? You say there's a mistake? Correct. Because does this come between it? No, it does not. So, back to the drawing board. We want to figure out which one it comes between. So, it's very close to the 121, right? But 120 comes in here somewhere. And then if this is a positive negative 11, it's going to come between the square root of 100, which is a positive negative 10. Now we're talking. Now the 120 is between the 100 and the 121. But now in this case, which one is it closer to? It's not closer to the 100, it's closer to the 121. But the 121 is bigger, isn't it? So since it comes between them, you still have to go with the 10. But it's not going to, it'll be a positive negative 10, but it's not going to be like a 0.1 or a 2 like we did up here because it was so close to the lower one. This time it's so close to the bigger one, we're probably going to go with 10.1. 9. All right, so in this case it comes between the 100 and the 121, but it is only 1 away from the bigger one here. So that doesn't mean you pick the 11, okay, because it's not quite to an 11 yet, because that would be 121. So we have to go with about approximately the 10.9, positive, negative 10.9. All right, letter D. Let's find what 148 will be between. It'll be between the square roots of 144, good. That would be a positive, negative 12. So this must be, I need the positive, negative 13, which is 13 times 13 is 169. Now in this case, we know it comes between here, so it's going to be 12 point something because it's bigger than the 144. So it's going to be approximately positive, negative 12 point what? It's not, you know, it's not real close. Like up here, we were only 1 away. And here we were only like 2 away. This one's like more like 4 away. 148 minus 144, that's 4. So instead of 0.1, I'm going to go with 0.2. All right, because it's just a little bit further away. So that's a very good estimation. It's approximately a positive, negative 12.2. All right, letter E. Here's an expression we need to just find an approximate now. An approximate answer to the nearest tenth. So we have to take our knowledge. What did we learn yesterday, or on, I think it was 1.5. We have to round this to the nearest. Let's figure out the nearest whole number. So let's see. The square root of 8 is not a perfect square, but it is very close to what? Well, it would be between the square root of 4. That would be positive, negative 2. And it would be between the square root of 9, which is the positive, negative 3. Which one is it closest to? It is definitely closer to the 9, right? The positive, negative 3. So you could say that it is 2.9 if you wanted to do that and get really close. You could say, because we round it to the nearest tenth. Or you could just go with the whole number like we learned and say it's closest to the 3. So then we would have, that would equal 3 over 2, and then round it to the nearest tenth. What is 3 over 2 as to the nearest tenth? Well, if you need to do some long division, top number divided by the bottom number. 2 goes into 3 once. 1 times 2 is 2. Subtract, I get 1. And I have to add a 0. How many times does 2 go into 10 without going over? Exactly 5. So our approximate value would be 1.5. All right. Now if you would have done it the other way and rounded it to the nearest tenth like we did up here first, we said that this comes really close to the 9, right? So it'd be like probably 2.9. Now if we had that over 2, you could do the same thing. What is 2.9 then divided by 2? Bring your decimal up. 2 goes into 2 once. Subtract, get 0, bring down the 9. How many times does 2 go into 9 without going over? 4. You get an 8. Add another 0, goes into there 5. So in that way, you would have gotten approximately 1.45, which is very close to 1.5. So if you don't have a calculator, you still get very close at approximating what the answer would be if you simplify the square root of 8 over 2. All right, I'm going to clean my page up here because it's kind of messy. And then we'll continue on with our other examples. Hopefully you got all this in your notes so you have it to go back and look at. And bear with me, I'm doing the best I can with my new iPad here and working with erasers and all this good stuff. I need you guys. You guys could probably help me out really good on this. All right, let's slide this up. We left off on letter E. Maybe I can make these a little bigger so I don't have to write so small. All right, let's look at letter F. I have the square root of 19. Let's go with a different color. We'll wake us up a little variation here. Square root of 19 over 5. I'm going to go with the whole number again and then divide to get to my nearest tenth. So what does the 119 come in between? We have the square root of 119 that comes in between the square root of 100 and the square root of 121. All right, now this is a positive negative 10. This is a positive negative 11. Which one is it closest to? It's very close to 121. It's 19 away from the 100. It's only 2 away from the 121. So if we use the nearest whole number, we're going to go with the 11. So let's see. We could do 11 divided by 5. If we turn this into approximately 11, because you take your numerator, divide it by your denominator, and we would get what? 5 goes into 11 twice without going over. 2 times 5 is 10. Subtract, I get 1 left over, add a decimal and a 0. Bring that down. 5 goes into 10 exactly 2 times. So my answer would be approximately 2.2. Now if we were rounding this to the nearest tenth, we would definitely say it's closer to the 121. It's almost there. So you would turn this into positive negative 10.8 probably. And then divide that by 5. Should we see how close we get? All right, so if we went to the nearest tenth like we did on the previous ones, before they were expressions, it goes into here twice. 2 times 5 is 10, I get 0. Bring down the 8, bring my decimal up. How many times does 5 go into 8 without going over? 5 goes into 8 one time without going over. 1 times 5 is 5. Subtract, I get 3. Add a 0. How many times does 5 go into 30 without going over? 6. So in that case, it'd be approximately a 2.16, super close to the 2.2. Again, I think it's a lot easier that when you're simplifying your fractions, though, and that you just probably want to approximate it to the nearest whole number and then divide from there. All right. That takes us to G and H. Again, if you needed more time to write that down, you know, you just hit pause on the video, go back, hit pause. And let's go, we have 4 left. And we really probably need the practice on these so you know how to do them on your homework. Now the square root of 24, excuse me, let's round that, let's estimate that to the nearest whole number. And that's super close to the square root of 25, right? Which equals a positive negative 5. So what is 5 over 10? What does that equal? We all know that equals 1/2. Do we even really need to do the division there? We all know that 1/2 stands for 0.5. So it's approximately, and here, you know what, I've been forgetting to tell you that these are positive negative answers. My bad. So you should go back and add up. Your answer could be a positive or a negative 0.5. And letter H. This I know is very close to the square root of 81, which equals a positive negative 9 over 4. So therefore, we know that 9 divided by either a positive or a negative 4 goes in there twice without going over. 2 times 4 is 8. Subtract, I get 1. Add my decimal and 0, bring that down. How many times does 4 go into 10 without going over? 2 times. So now I've got, in my messy writing with my new pen, 2.2. 2 times 4 is 8. Subtract, I get a 2. Do you see a pattern here? Not yet. Good. Okay, so 4 goes into 20. How many times? 5. 5 times 4 is 20. Perfect. So we know that our answer for this is approximately a positive negative 2.25. And let's get that all written down then and go on to I and J. Do a couple more examples to get you going. Remember, my key will be on the overhead for your succeeding to check and not your cheating. Let's look at letter I. You guys want to see what the pencil looks like when I use that? We'll use blue. You can see what that looks like. All right, so 3, when there's 3 in front of the 10, that means that that's 3, oh, that's going to be messy, 3 times the square root of 10. I can't use that. That's just going to be too messy. Let's go green for Packers. All right, so 3 times the square root of 10. So this is going to be 3 times, round this to the nearest whole number. Well, that's super close to the square root of 9, which equals positive negative 3, right? So what is 3 times 3? Approximately positive negative 9. Because we could use either a positive, 3 times a positive 3, 3 times a negative 3. Your answer would be positive negative 9. And J. Last one. Now we have a negative out here, so that's a negative 2 times the square root of 145. And the square root of 145 is very, very close to the square root of 144, which equals 12. So now we have a negative 2 times, it could be either a positive or a negative 12, right? So we know that a negative 2 times 12 is 24, right? And we know that a negative times a negative would be a positive. And we know the negative times a positive would be a negative, so our answer would be a positive or a negative 24, approximately. Hopefully that was enough examples now. If you need to rewatch, that's fine as well. But these are kind of fun. Think of them as puzzles, rounding them to what. Just make sure you always read the directions and know what you need to round your answers to, all right? And go from there. The major ones that you need to round your answers to the nearest tenth are this type of answers when we just give you the radicals. If there's an expression involved like this, usually the directions will say round it to the nearest whole number. Okay? And if you want to make it nearest tenth, you could go 9.0, all right? Or 24.0, that would be rounded to the nearest tenth if you wanted to be technically correct. All right, work hard, be good, and have fun on your homework.